Hello, everybody. I'm Sister Deborah Marie Borneman. I currently serve as the Director of Mission Integration for the National Religious Vocation Conference here in Chicago, Illinois. I'm very excited to share with you this evening three sisters who will talk a little bit about their vocations. And so we'll begin with introductions. Sister Laura, why don't you go first?
Yes, I'm Sister Laura Sir from the Sisters of the Order of St. Benedict at St. Benedict's Monastery in St. Joseph, Minnesota. I went to Hutchinson High School in Hutchinson, Minnesota, and graduated in 2006.
Sister Symphony?
Hi, my name is Sister Symphony Zhao Ngo. I'm a Sister of Charity of the Incarnate Word, Houston, Texas. And I went to the high school, Thunder High School in Saigon, as known as Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam. I graduated in 2005.
Well, thank you. And Sister Karina?
Yes, my name is Sister Karina, and I am a Sister of Charity of Cincinnati, Ohio. And I am currently living in Chicago at the Intercongregational Collaborative Novitiate.
Thank you. And when did you graduate from high school?
Oh gosh, I graduated from high school in 2015 from Dixie Heights High School in Erlanger, Kentucky.
Thanks. And I am a sister of St. Cyril Methodius, and I went to public high school, and it was in the Jewish neighborhood in Pittsburgh, Taylor Alderdice High School, and I'm a graduate of the class of 1983. So let's walk back a little bit to those high school days. What I'd like to know is, were you thinking about religious life in high school? Was it a passing thought? Was there a tug going on, or you didn't really even think about it in high school? So what was that like for you? And then what's your earliest memory of thinking about a vocation as a sister?
So I will start with the earliest memory I have. So I was in sixth grade at a Catholic elementary school. And I remember at one point thinking, I wonder if God is calling me to be a nun. And it was kind of a fleeting thought. So that was in sixth grade. And then I really kind of thought I was going to be a mom. And so it wasn't like it was on the back burner. I just didn't remember it. But then I went to college at the College of St. Benedict, which my community founded, and we share the same campus. And I was at LOH, Liturgy of the Hours, for a class, and I bumped into my elementary principal, and I was so shocked, and she remembered who I was, but I called home and I said, "Oh my gosh, Mom, Sister Joyce is here." And she said, "Well, what's she doing there?" And I said, "Well, apparently she's a Benedictine." So I knew Sister Joyce was my elementary principal, but I didn't know anything really beyond that as far as what it would be like. So I didn't really spend a lot of time pondering, but one thing that is a little different now is many of the older members of my monastic community, they came to be teachers and nurses, and we functioned a little more like an apostolic community. But since Vatican II, really reclaiming our roots, that Benedictines, it's really community and then praying together is kind of more of our focus. And that's what I think I was drawn to. But I wouldn't necessarily have known that early on.
So my earliest memory of wanted to be the religious sisters, I think I was 4 years old. Then I came home from the catechism class one day, and I told my mom, I said, Mom, I wanted to be a sister who wears the full habit, and I want to serve the poor, I want to serve the elderly. And my mom just looked at me and laughed and smiled at me with no belief in any of that. So I soon forgot about my first intention. And then until the sophomore year, that I didn't know why I have a desire to go to mass, daily mass. And in Vietnam, the morning mass is at 5 a.m. So I had to wake up at 4:30 and preparing and walk to the church. And it just goes through that process for the whole year. And I didn't know that this was calling until a sister in the parish came to me and said, "Oh, do you want to go and come and see with us?" And I asked the permission of my parents, and then I came for 10 days, come and see. And my dad's sowed the seed in my vocation discernment.
So, kind of thinking about religious life when I was in high school, I remember being invited to go to a youth retreat. And I think this was maybe the first time that I felt a calling to it because it was the first time that I was introduced to Eucharistic adoration as well, and kind of having this like direct relationship with God. And I remember there being a lot of sisters and a lot of brothers. So that was really cool to see that there was different communities of sisters. Because growing up, I knew one sister, and she was a Sister of Charity of Cincinnati. And of course, I'm in the Sisters of Charity of Cincinnati now, but she had just a really major impact on me. And I think it was just seeing her in our community active, and she was super involved, especially in immigration work. We were a largely Hispanic population in that parish. Um, and so I just always really admired her. And so I think when I first felt the calling at this youth retreat, she was the first person I thought of and the first person that I reached out to. Um, and she was an apostolic sister. So that kind of drew me in. And yeah, once I told her that I was discerning this, she did encourage me to look into other communities, but also to get to know the young sisters in hers. And then that's what I did. And here I am now.
Thank you. So, our family and friends, they have a profound impact on our lives. And oftentimes they will encourage us or maybe sometimes discourage us. So, can you talk a little bit about your family and friends and, how did they encourage you while you were discerning your vocation or shortly after you were just entered religious life? And what was helpful for you?
So I did not want to tell anyone I was discerning religious life. Um, so kind of when I was a first year in college, I saw the sisters and that memory from sixth grade came back. And that was like, okay, now I need to like investigate this. So I had the same roommates all 4 years, still good friends with all of them. And we pretty much knew where everyone was all the time, but I knew I would never be closer to a vocation director. So in college, I met with the vocation director and I had just like meeting written on the calendar. And finally, one of my roommates was like, okay, where are you sneaking off to? And I said, I'm secretly discerning religious life. And she said, cool, me too. And so all of my roommates ended up coming to these. I don't know if it was like maybe monthly, maybe twice a month. Um, and then one pretty quickly said, actually, I think I'm called to marriage. One of them is now a missionary of charity. And the other one, we probably discerned the most together. And she was just so supportive. And she's now married with 4 kids. And so we went from Minnesota to visit like the Dominicans in Ann Arbor together. Or they had like a Fiat 5K, a 5K race in our diocese to raise money for women's vocations. And so we actually got money to help fund that event, I guess, or like for us to go on the come and see. So that was nice. So just like she was the one who told me about the different events and just supporting each other in that way. And then my family, so they were a bit hesitant at first, but very supportive. My mom said right away, just because I became a mom, that never guaranteed I'd have grandkids. And at the time, I didn't think much of it, but quite often now we do get people whose parents are like, but I wanted grandkids. So the parents aren't always supportive. And then my parents also said, we've always taught you to do whatever God asks. Why would we tell you anything different now? If this is what God's calling you to, then go for it. So I was very blessed to have family and friends that supported me, especially when I was a little bit more hesitant at first to admit I was discerning.
So after high school, my family decided to send me to the US to study abroad. So I became an international student. I arrived in Houston and to study my music degree. And after that, as a oldest daughter, and also that the thinking of my parents spent a fortune for me to study abroad out of the country. So the expectation from everyone else that I will go out, graduated, found a job, and support my parents and my two younger sisters. I didn't do any of that. I told my parents that I decided to discern and with the Sister of Charity of the Incarnate Word. To my surprise, my parents very supportive of that, even though my mom secretly here and there would say, "Oh, I don't know when you're going to go home and visit me. I might lose my daughter." But then she learned through the years that no, she never lose me. I'm still her daughter. However, the encouragement from the outsiders, the pressures, so it was hard in the beginning. But thankfully, I always have a support from my family. And the most helpful phrase that my parents told me that whatever happened, you're always welcome home.
So I started seriously discerning with my community in college. And one of the things that I just found to be such a gift is to find that not only my family was supportive, but also friends. And I had a very close friend in college. Her name is Sandra. And we were both doing the same major. And so we would study together, but I also felt very affirmed because she was also thinking about religious life. And so just to have someone who is kind of with you in these study groups and doing the same classes and also thinking about religious life with you, it's just very affirming. So I was very grateful for that friendship and that encouragement from her. My family was very supportive, and I think that's one of the um, greatest gifts is to have that support from them. My mom would always tell me, like, everyone gets married and has kids, but no one like gives their life to God. And so she's always been very, very encouraging. Um, but I think, I mean, even coworkers too, who are not Catholic at all, just find it so fascinating, because all they hear about religious life is stuff from movies and, you know, not firsthand experiences. So it was really neat to have their support. But I think um, what was very encouraging for me was also the support that came in ways that I didn't expect. Um, and I had an uncle that I was kind of scared to tell him that I was doing this. But he happened to be the one who was the most supportive and who was like, wow, that is such an honor for our family. And so that was very touching. And I think that right now, since I'm away from them, and what really helps too is seeing like them seeing how happy I am in this life that I have chosen. And so just their continued support has meant so much to me.
Thank you so much. It's so inspiring to listen to each of you and your stories. So let's turn a little bit to parishes. Oftentimes, parishes they don't have sisters there, and so they don't know what to do. It's kind of to them like, well, how do we support someone? How do we encourage someone? And there's over 500 women's religious institutes in the United States, over 200 religious institutes for men, and so it really can be a confusing maze, for people if they're thinking about a vocation to religious life. So how was your parish involved? Were they involved?
So I was older. I was 28 when I entered my community. And because I didn't really think about it in high school, it definitely like I was a young adult. But I would say um, people weren't really surprised when I told them. And then the priest actually asked, so we were in a cluster of 3 parishes. And because I liked going to daily mass and adoration, and it was like rural area, I really felt like I did know people in all three parishes. So one thing was that I was invited to, shortly before I left, just share my vocation story with all three parishes at the end of Mass, and then people were allowed to come out afterwards and have Q&A. So it was really a lot of young parents introducing their little babies to me, saying, maybe someday you can follow in her footsteps. She's going to be a sister. So that was kind of fun. So I would say that that was very encouraging. And I also had discerned with my community for about 8 years. So I felt that was something that felt right for me to do. And it was a way that brought awareness to our parishes.
So I volunteer in the choir in the parish. And then after a year that I have to tell them that I have to move a little far away to discern my vocation. So then out of my surprise, I received a package from the Catholic Daughters of the Americas, belong to the parish I was volunteer with. And in there will be like a care package with including snack and some gift cards, some medicines like over-the-counter medicine, cough drop, Tylenol, and especially it's a card or a letter that to say, oh, we are thinking about you, you are in our prayer, and we pray for your vocation and discernment. So it's a very encouraging for me. And it never failed. Twice a year, I will receive that care package from the parish. And also that how the parish can help to promote a vocation. I think this almost the same with Sister Laura. There's schools in the parish, belong to the parishes, so invited the sisters or brothers or seminarians, priests for the vocation fair to come to talk about the vocations. So even though the little ones will be so excited, or the older one kind of not pay attention, but they have very good questions. So that's very helpful.
So at my parish, it's a largely Hispanic Latino population, and it's in northern Kentucky, and I feel like there's not a lot of resources available to our community, and so I I think to this day, we still don't really have a strong youth ministry at all. And so the way that my parish, I guess, helped me in my discernment is having a sister there who, it was by her example that I, you know, was just so, I just really admired her selflessness and the work that she did at this parish. And so I think that it's because of this close and personal relationship that I had with her that really made the difference. And so, um, coming from a parish with not many resources, um, I think my advice is to encourage vocational discernment by investing in the youth. And I think also, inviting local communities of brothers and sisters to come and talk to the youth and build those relationships.
Thank you. So, Sister Laura talked about it took her 8 years to discern, and we've actually had a study and research that on average it takes someone at least a year to discern their vocation. So, you don't just decide one day, wake up and say, oh, I want to enter religious life and fill out the application, and there you are the next weekend. Vocation discernment is listening attentively to the voice of God, and then also accompany walking with a vocation director who will help you and to help you kind of sift through, where are your skills, where are your talents, and where is it that, you can best respond to God's call. So for our youth ministers who are our, intended audience here, what words of wisdom could you share with them if a teen were to go up to them to say, courageously, say like, can we learn a little bit more about, sisters? Because I've never seen one before. I've never met one before. What would you tell youth ministers so that they could find us or know that we're more than willing to talk about our vocation. So, what would you like to tell our youth ministers?
So one thing right away that I think of is creating a culture open to vocations. So right away, starting, if you do have local communities, bringing them in for youth night if you can, or having them give a talk, but also to just encourage discernment in general. To say, most of you will be called to marriage. Some of you might be called to single life, consecrated virginity, or religious life. To just kind of have that as like a foundation. And then the other point, so Sister Debbie touched on, is discernment is a slow process, so that they know that they don't have to rush into it, and also that if God is calling them, God will be there in the whole process, and that while they're discerning, um, and if they find like, okay, this community isn't the right community, or, maybe I am called to marriage, that's okay. And it's not a failure, but that just to be proud of them for thinking about it and to just encourage that deeper thinking. Knowing who the communities are in your area, or if there is spiritual directors. Often dioceses do a great job of having a vocation director for men discerning diocesan priesthood, but not such a great job for religious, for men or women outside of that. So I think any vocation director, at least in my experience, I looked at several communities. The most important thing they wanted was for me to be in the right community. So even if you can just point them towards a community, hopefully that gives them some support. So kind of knowing who broader resources are, and then also knowing like, or reminding them like, if they like praying the mass in Latin, saying, there's communities that do that. So just educating yourself a little bit, but also trusting the Holy Spirit will do a lot of the work. They do not need to look at more than 5 or 6 communities. That's what studies show. You do not need to look at all of them. You will know in your heart which one God's calling you to. God will point you in the right direction.
I will confirm about the sister when you said that vocation discernment is a process. Yes. So for me, it's a process of doubt, a process of confusion, hesitation, and the fears of the unknown. So it will take a lot of courage. Then I will encourage the youth ministers to be attentive to the discerners and listen to them like deeply. And then they can encourage the youth, the teens, to continue to learn about themselves, about what they really want, what are their gifts, their charism, and then they can match with the congregation charism and ways of life. And another way that, yes, they will have a lot of volunteers opportunity. So then the youth can go out and help. But then when they go back, have the reflection time for them. And let's see that, oh, do you want to offer your entire life to do serving people, or to be praying, or to do both at the same time? And lastly, I would like to paraphrase Father Pedro Arope poem that the most practical way to is to find in God and to fall in love with God through prayer and stay in that love. When the person can feel that love, they will be brave enough to say yes and be brave enough to offer their lives to God.
Thank you so much for your sharing, sisters. What I would add is that when I was discerning, I scoured the internet. I feel like with this day and age, there's so much information available online. And I would look up different local communities, and I would be on the website of the Sisters of Charity and watch every single video on there. So just, I guess my advice would be to encourage the youth to use the technology that they know so well, to do this research, to be curious, to be open about it, And I think my advice would also be that you don't have to have it all figured out. Um, you don't have to have everything figured out. I thought that once I graduated college, it was either I joined the workforce or I become a sister the next day. Like, you are allowed to, I mean, you want to discern this and you don't have to know what's going to happen or have everything figured out. And you can start with just being courageous and taking the first step and reaching out to a vocation director and starting to build those relationships with the sisters or brothers of the community of your choice.
Sister Karina, that's just such great advice. You're talking about the internet. And just a reminder that Vision Vocation Network is a great source to begin to learn about religious life. You can go to vocationnetwork.org to get articles, videos. You can even do a vocation match to find out. It's a very non threatening way to find out anonymously, in a sense, about religious life. And so I want to thank each one of you for sharing your time and sharing your stories. That we are available. We like to talk about our vocation. So don't hesitate to our youth ministers to reach out and continue the conversation with us. Thank you to the NFCYM for inviting us to be a part of this Momentum video series. Thank you.